So there is legit information based off the so-called Jews, or the Khazars, that integrated with actual Eurocentric Jews of the Middle East. Also, devilish orchestrated propaganda. Ironically, orchestrated by these same devilish forces, like Adolf Hitler and the Nazis themselves, connected with the ultimate one world system in which all nations, all corrupt empires would be under the control of one mind, one beast, one dragon serpent, committing one of the most devilish acts in all of human history, the Jewish Holocaust, destruction of actual Eurocentric Jews that were really of Sephardim and Yemenite Jewish descent. Of course, during this same time era, back in World War I and World War II, you had the Italian invasion on Ethiopia. The same time during the Jewish Holocaust from Nazi Germany, you had the other side of the Axis powers along with Germany, which was Italy, and Mussolini invading Ethiopia and its oppression of the Ethiopian Jews and Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, posting up signs that said, "Kill all those wearing the cross." Of course, ironically, there were Japanese American concentration or internment camps, if you will, right here on American soil. Now, to a certain degree, you know, the last justified war to a certain degree that the U.S. has fought anywhere in the world was in, you know, World War II against the Axis powers. But at the same time, the multitude of hypocrisy that took place right here on American soil is outrageous. Along with Japanese Americans, there were genuine Christians of all colored people and different denominations of true Christians that opposed fighting the war because they simply did not believe in war. Also put into these different camps across the U.S. And this historical fact is often left out, going back to the people in the so-called concentration camps or internment camps right here on U.S. soil, and the invasion of Ethiopia by Italy, the Italian Brigade controlled by Mussolini himself. This is actually written and even prophesied in Jah Word. If you check out the book of Revelations, chapter 11, chapter 12, where it talks about that ancient dragon serpent fights again on earth.
The League of Nations in Geneva, the Emperor went to plead Ethiopia's just cause. The League, fearful of a shadow which would turn into the Second World War, did nothing. Shamefully, the great powers left Ethiopia to Mussolini and the Emperor to lonely exile in England.
His Majesty, Negus Haile Selassie, I call upon the first delegate of Ethiopia.
Nowhere, I think, was the Emperor's tragedy felt more deeply than among the black people of the West, the slave descendants in North America and the Caribbean.
Revelations 12, verse 5. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to Yahweh and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she is a place prepared by God, Elohim. So there she could be nourished for 1,260 days.
Black consciousness had dawned in Jazz Age Harlem, and Africa fermented in the exiles' hearts. Many supported a black activist called Marcus Garvey, and when he demanded Africa for the Africans and repatriation to the homeland, they saw Ethiopia as a special symbol of the whole continent. Until now, it alone had not been seized by white Europeans. Such people volunteered to fight for Haile Selassie, although only a handful managed to go, or they organized to send relief.
And keep in mind, a lot of these African Americans and African Jamaicans were descendants of the African slaves, the original descendants of the lost tribes of Israel taken in captivity.
As Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, those people gave up money, medicine, clothes, and what have you, and sent into Haile Selassie.
A branch of the Ethiopian World Federation soon opened in Jamaica, where Garvey came from. But in this neglected corner of the British Empire, black frustration had a new twist. A few ex-followers of Garvey had begun to mix Haile Selassie, symbol of Africa, with biblical notions of a Messiah. By abbreviating Jehovah, or Yahweh, to Jah, and adding this to the emperor's earlier name, Rastafari, they created the invocation Jah Rastafari, a black Messiah for their redemption. It would be years before any followers of the Rastafarian faith reached Ethiopia. The emperor knew nothing about them, as he himself returned, with British military help, to reclaim his throne.
Look what Mussolini is trying to do. Take a bigger mouthful than any man can do. The drums are beating and the people call, but we cannot let the lion of Judah fall. So let us take a turn in our hall and defend the Ethiopian war. Declare.
So this historical fact is kind of left out of a lot of textbooks within American history, or what is being taught to a lot of youth today in the so-called public schools across the United States. Of course, when it comes to World War I and World War II, we learn about the basic evidence of the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, Pearl Harbor, Nazi Germany, the Jewish Holocaust, and all that. But very rarely do we hear about the most relevant, most important part of World War II, based off Ethiopia and the Italian invasion of Ethiopia and His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie and his triumphant victory over that dragon serpent, being that political system integrated with the Axis powers, and even the 10 horns representing the 10 kingdoms during the fall of ancient Rome, that evil Babylonian empire. Of course, there are other locations throughout the world in the East that the oppression in Tibet of innocent Buddhist monks and innocent Buddhists being oppressed by the communist Chinese government. The supposed bombing in Cambodia during that time of the Korean War and the Vietnam conflict, just to demonstrate the U.S. military power in that time, which led to the destruction of innocent civilians in Cambodia, having nothing to do with war.
Photographs of the victims from the Cambodian genocide are what really haunt you. Like the Nazis, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge seem to be obsessed with documenting their atrocities.